There are certain star players in the NBA, past or present, who are amazing during the regular season, but come playoff time, they hit a wall and struggle to live up to expectations. I'm sure there are certain players you are thinking of at the moment, but on the other hand, there are some players who are good during the regular season, but in the playoffs, they turn into a completely different monster. So in this video, we're going to be going over these NBA players who elevate their game come playoff time. Cue the intro. Just one disclaimer before we get into this list that I'll be leaving the two GOATs off this list in Jordan and LeBron, as those are two players who obviously should be on this list but didn't want them taking two valuable spots, so I decided to leave both of them off, as I wanted to include a few other players who deserve to mention. So without further ado, let's hop right into this list with our first player, Jamal Murray. Let's start this list off with someone most of you are familiar with, as he was just a huge part in the Denver Nuggets winning the 2023 NBA Championship. Jamal Murray entered the league in 2016, being the 7th overall pick by the Denver Nuggets, and putting up around 10 points per game his rookie year. In his third year in the league in 2019, Murray upped his averages to 18 points per game, as well as 5 assists. He also made his first playoff appearance that year, where his Nuggets would face off against the San Antonio Spurs with LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. In his first ever playoff series in the NBA, Murray would hit clutch shot after clutch shot as his Nuggets finished off the Spurs in 7 games, putting up a similar 19 points per game that series. But that would be just the start of Jamal Murray's legendary playoff career. As in the next series against the Trailblazers, the Nuggets would lose that series in 7, but Murray upped his scoring that series to 23 points per game compared to just 18 during the regular season. The next year in the bubble was undoubtedly his greatest postseason showing to date. In the first round against the Utah Jazz, Murray dropped 2 50-point games that series, as well as Donovan Mitchell who put on a show. But Murray and the Nuggets won that series, averaging 31 points per game in a 7-game series win. And mind you, Murray only averaged 18 points per game in 2020, but finished the 2020 playoffs averaging 26 points per game. And finally, his championship run with the Nuggets in 2023 was no different. After another good season putting up 20 points per game and coming off a torn ACL, Murray took his game to the next level in the playoffs again. He hit endless clutch shots, finishing the playoffs again averaging 26 points per game, but this time getting the job done, winning the NBA championship. Kyrie Irving. Although Kyrie hasn't had the best luck in the playoffs in recent memory, he has been extremely reliable for showing up in big games, especially during his time in Cleveland. Looking back at the 2016 NBA Finals when the Cavs were down 3-1, the Cavs wouldn't have made that comeback if Kyrie didn't turn superhuman those last 3 games. In Game 5 of that series in Golden State, Kyrie and LeBron each dropped 41 points, with Kyrie shooting an unbelievable 17 for 24 from the field in a Game 5 win to send the series back to Cleveland. The Cavs won Game 6 to send it back to Golden State for a 7th game, and I'm sure most of you are aware of what Kyrie pulled off that game. Game 7 of the NBA Finals, game tied with a minute remaining. Kyrie has Curry on him, and he hits one of the clutchest threes of all time to help the Cavs win their first NBA title in franchise history. Kyrie finished that Game 7 with 26 points, and he finished the 2016 playoffs averaging 25 points per game, after just putting up around 20 in the regular season. Even though Kyrie hasn't had the best playoff luck in recent years, Kyrie was an absolute killer in the playoffs during his time with the Cavs. And hopefully we can see Kyrie play at this level in the playoffs again in the future, because he's still got that dog in him. Rajon Rondo. Rondo was one of the most beloved point guards in his era during his time with the Boston Celtics, as not only was he one of the best playmakers and leaders in the league, but he transformed his game into a whole new level come playoff time. Playoff Rondo started all the way back in 2009 at just 23 years old, before he even made his first All-Star appearance. That season in 2009, Rondo put up 12 points per game as well as 9 assists. But in those playoffs with Kevin Garnett hurt and the Celtics needing their other players to show up, that's exactly what Rondo did. Rondo upped his averages in the playoffs to 17 points per game, 9 assists, and 9 rebounds in 14 games played, nearly averaging a triple-double in the playoffs at just 23 years old. Rondo was a huge factor in the Celtics' 2010 finals run, in which they just came up short by 1 game to the Lakers, but the 2012 playoffs were undoubtedly his best one to date. After averaging 12 points and nearly 12 assists per game for the season, Rondo upped those averages to 17 points per game, 12 assists, as well as 2.5 steals per game. He even scored his career high against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, putting up 44 points in Game 2. And this wasn't the last we would see of playoff Rondo either, as when he was with the Bulls in 2017, along with D Wade and Jimmy Butler, he only averaged around 8 points and 6 assists that season, but in those playoffs against the Celtics, he averaged 11 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, and 3.5 steals per game in the first 2 games they stole on the Celtics' home floor. Rondo unfortunately got hurt after the second game, and the Bulls lost the next 4 games. The very next year though, playoff Rondo would strike again, this time with the New Orleans Pelicans. After putting up 8 points and 8 assists per game for the season in 2018, he upped those averages once again to 10 points per game, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds, leading to a very shocking upset against the Portland Trail Blazers. Even in the final years of his career with the Lakers in 2020, Rondo was coming off the bench but helped the Lakers tremendously in the playoffs to win the championship that year and give us one of the most iconic photos in recent memory. Nikola Jokic. Another current Nuggets player on this list. I'm sure I don't need to go into too much detail about how great Nikola Jokic is, especially in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he becomes one of the best players in NBA history. Let's head back to 2019. Jokic's first playoffs at just 24 years old. That year he averaged 20 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists in the regular season, and he upped those averages to 25 points per game, 13 rebounds, and 8 assists in the playoffs. He had similar averages the next year in the bubble, but from 2021 to 2023 in the playoffs, Jokic has averaged 30 or more points in each and every single one of them, plus shooting on insane efficiency. In 2021, he averaged 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists. 2022, he averaged 31 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists. And 2023, the Nuggets championship run, Jokic averaged 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 assists per game. Plus, he shot a mind-blowing 46% from deep throughout the entire 2023 playoffs. These stats don't even make sense when you look at them, and it's crazy to think how good Jokic is in the regular season, as he's literally an MVP candidate every year, but he gets even better in the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard. Even though Kawhi hasn't had the best playoff success in the past few years with the Clippers, we cannot overlook how good he performs in the playoffs when he's healthy. Most of Kawhi's playoff success came before he even became a star player, as in the 2014 playoffs with the Spurs, Kawhi didn't have much of an offensive role, but he played top-notch defense, especially on LeBron in the finals, which helped him take home his first championship and finals MVP at just 22 years old. Fast forward to 2019, where Kawhi is now a superstar on the Toronto Raptors. That season, he averaged 26 points and 7 rebounds per game, but in the playoffs, he upped those averages to 30 points per game, along with 9 rebounds, a championship, and a finals MVP. And Kawhi's game with the Clippers in the playoffs hasn't slowed down a bit, as in 2020, they did lose in embarrassing fashion to the Denver Nuggets after being up 3-1, but Kawhi still averaged 28 and 9 on 49% from the field. 2021 was looking like another 2019 playoff run for Kawhi, as he single-handedly won Game 6 against the Mavs after being down 3-2, putting up 45 points and shooting 18 for 25 from the field. He unfortunately got hurt in the second round against the Jazz, as well as in 2023 against the Suns, but in both of those playoffs before he got hurt, Kawhi was averaging over 30 points per game in both and shooting well above 50%. And he plays on both ends of the court, unlike most star players in the league. We should honestly be praying for Kawhi's health come playoff time, because when he's healthy, he really is the closest thing to Michael Jordan. Jimmy Butler. Playoff Jimmy. If I had to choose one player whose game improves the most from the regular season to the playoffs, it would have to be Jimmy Butler.
Three, Butler with Brogdon on him, it's a long three, and good! Oh, Jimmy frickin' Butler puts it in!
Jimmy Butler is an all-star player during the regular season, but when it comes playoff time, Jimmy Butler really is something else. Jimmy would always show up in the playoffs during his time with the Bulls, the T-Wolves, and the Sixers, but when he joined the Miami Heat, he took it to a whole new level. In just his first season with the team in 2020, the Heat finished with 44 wins and 5th in the Eastern Conference. Nobody expected them to reach the NBA Finals that year, but they beat the first-seeded Bucks in the second round and the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals behind Jimmy Butler. They did lose in the finals to the Lakers, but that wasn't the end of playoff Jimmy. After a shaky 2021 season, Jimmy and the Heat were back in 2022. After averaging just 21 points, 6 boards, and 5 assists per game during the regular season, Jimmy upped those averages to 27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, along with 2 steals a game. That year, he was 1 win and 1 shot away from reaching the NBA Finals again. But the very next year in 2023 was arguably his best postseason to date. Jimmy had an identical regular season, but the Heat barely squeezed into the playoffs, barely beating the Bulls in the play-in game to make the 8th seed. But as soon as those playoffs begun, Jimmy reminded all of us why we call him Playoff Jimmy. Jimmy and the Heat destroyed the first seed in Milwaukee Bucks, behind Jimmy scoring 56 points in Game 4, and hit an insane shot to send Game 5 to OT, in which they would finish the series off in. Jimmy and the Heat went on to defeat the Knicks and the Celtics again in the Eastern Conference Finals to make their second Finals appearance in 4 years. They would lose in 5 games to the Denver Nuggets, who were the better team, but Jimmy finished the 2023 playoffs averaging 27 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists per game, was the best defender on his team outside of Bam, and helped lead an 8th seeded team to the NBA Finals for just the second time in NBA history. Thank you guys if you made it to the end of this video. If you like this video and want to see more content just like this one, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for new videos every week. And leave a comment if you think any other players deserve to mention on this list. Thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video.